The Price of Betrayal, Complete Story. Part 1, The Shattered Illusion. The Perfect Anniversary Plan. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the marble kitchen counter as I carefully arranged red roses in a crystal vase. 6 years. 6 years of marriage to Marcus Reynolds, the man I thought was my soulmate. Today was our anniversary, and I had planned everything perfectly. "Mrs. Reynolds, the champagne is chilled, and the cake will be delivered by 5, said Maria, our housekeeper, smiling warmly at me. "Thank you, Maria. You can leave early today. I want to surprise Marcus with a romantic dinner." I beamed with excitement, thinking about his face when he'd walk through that door. I had closed my boutique early, something I rarely did. My fashion store, Elena's Elegance, was thriving, but today was special. Marcus had been working late for months, stressed about his position at my father's investment firm. I wanted to remind him that we were a team, that love conquers everything. The penthouse looked like a romantic movie set. Candles flickered on every surface, rose petals created a path from the entrance to the dining room, and soft jazz played in the background. I wore the emerald dress Marcus bought me on our honeymoon in Paris, the one he said made my eyes sparkle like precious gems. At 6 o'clock, I heard the elevator ding. My heart raced with anticipation. But something felt wrong. I heard laughter, 2 voices, not one. A woman's giggle echoed through the hallway. "Marcus is so predictable. She probably has the whole place decorated like a shrine," the female voice said mockingly. My blood ran cold. I recognized that voice. It was Natalie, my best friend since college. My maid of honor. The woman I trusted with my deepest secrets. The shocking discovery. I stood frozen as they entered the living room, too wrapped up in each other to notice me immediately. Marcus had his arm around Natalie's waist, and she was wearing a designer dress I had helped her pick out last month. They were laughing, comfortable, intimate. "Surprise," I said, my voice cutting through their laughter like a knife through silk. They jumped apart, but not quickly enough. The guilt on their faces told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a first-time mistake. This was practiced, familiar, ongoing. "Elena." Marcus stammered, his face draining of color. "You're home early." "It's our anniversary," I said quietly, my hands trembling as I pointed to the romantic setup around us. 6 years today. Remember? Natalie had the decency to look away, but Marcus squared his shoulders, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before: coldness, calculation, and something that looked almost like relief. "Elena, we need to talk," he said, straightening his tie. "I think that's obvious," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "How long?" Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. "Answer me." My voice cracked. "How long have you been sleeping with my best friend?" Natalie finally spoke, her voice lacking any trace of remorse. 14 months, if you must know. And honestly, Elena, you should have seen this coming. The cruel revelation. Her words hit me like a physical blow. 14 months. Over a year of lies, of betrayal, of them laughing behind my back. I thought about all the times Natalie had come over for girl talk, all the late nights Marcus claimed he was working. They had been together, making a fool of me. Why? It was all I could manage to say. Marcus loosened his tie and walked to the bar, pouring himself a whiskey as if we were discussing the weather. "Because you're boring, Elena. You're predictable. Every day is the same, your boutique, your charity events, your perfect little life. Natalie understands me. She's exciting, spontaneous." I felt like I was watching this scene from outside my body. The man I had loved for 8 years, 2 years of dating, 6 years of marriage, was telling me I wasn't enough. "I gave you everything," I whispered. "I supported your career, I never complained when you worked late, You suffocated me." Marcus interrupted, his voice rising. "Do you know what it's like being married to someone whose family owns the company you work for? Everyone knows I'm just Elena Hartford's husband, living in her father's shadow. That's not fair, I said, tears streaming down my face. You said you loved me. You said we were partners. Natalie laughed, actually laughed. Oh, Elena. You're so naive. Marcus and I are in love. Real love. Not the boring, comfortable arrangement you two had. The ultimatum. Marcus set down his glass and looked at me with eyes that now seemed like a stranger's. I want a divorce, Elena. And I want you to move out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move out? This is my apartment. My father gave us this penthouse as a wedding gift. Technically, Marcus said, pulling out a document from his briefcase, it's in both our names. And since I've been living here for 6 years, I have rights. My lawyer says we can make this easy or difficult. Your choice. My lawyer? He had already consulted a lawyer. This wasn't a spontaneous confession, this was planned, calculated. They had been preparing for this moment. You have 1 week, Natalie added, sitting on my couch like she already owned it. We want to start our life together without you hanging around like a ghost. I looked between them, these two people I had trusted more than anyone in the world, and something inside me shifted. The shock began to fade, replaced by something colder, sharper. Fine, I said, my voice suddenly calm. I'll leave. Marcus looked surprised by my easy agreement. Really? Just like that? Just like that, I replied, grabbing my purse. I'll get my things tomorrow when you're at work. As I walked toward the door, Natalie called out, oh, and Elena? I'll take good care of your Chanel collection. We were the same size, after all. I didn't turn around. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I simply walked out of the penthouse, took the elevator down 40 floors, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The silent resolve. I drove aimlessly for an hour, tears blurring my vision, until I found myself parked outside my parents' estate. I couldn't go in, not yet. I couldn't face their pity, their "I told you so" looks. My father had never fully trusted Marcus, said something was off about a man who seemed too eager to marry into the Hartford family. Instead, I checked into a 5-star hotel under a fake name and sat in the darkroom, staring at my phone. 14 months of lies. I scrolled through photos of the three of us, Marcus, Natalie, and me at dinner parties, on vacation, celebrating birthdays. In every picture, they were standing close, sharing private smiles I had been too trusting to notice. My phone rang. It was my younger sister, Sophie. Elena. Happy anniversary. How's the romantic dinner going? I couldn't speak. The words caught in my throat. Elena? Are you okay? No, I finally managed. I'm not okay. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was silent for a long moment. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. He wants me gone within a week. He's already consulted a lawyer. Elena, Sophie's voice turned hard. Remember what Dad always taught us? Never let anyone see you bleeding. You're a Hartford. Act like it. Her words triggered something in me. She was right. I had been thinking like a heartbroken wife, but I needed to think like a businesswoman, like the daughter of James Hartford, one of the most successful investors in the country. Sophie, I need you to do something for me, I said, my mind suddenly clear. Tomorrow, go to the penthouse when Marcus is at work. Bring a camera. I need you to photograph everything, every document in his office, every piece of mail, every bank statement you can find. Elena, what are you planning? Marcus wants to play games, I said, a cold smile forming on my lips. Let's see how he likes playing with someone who knows all the rules. The investigation begins. The next morning, I woke up with purpose. The tears had dried up, replaced by determination. I called my personal lawyer, David Chen, someone Marcus didn't know about, a lawyer I had kept independently for my boutique business. "David, I need you to be discreet. I'm getting divorced, and I need to know everything about my husband's finances." "Elena, I'm sorry to hear that. What do you need specifically?" "Everything. Bank accounts, investments, credit cards, business dealings. And I need to know if he's been using my family's company resources for personal gain." "That's a serious allegation." "I know. But something tells me Marcus isn't as clean as he pretends to be." While David started his investigation, Sophie sent me photos from the penthouse. Among them were bank statements showing large withdrawals Marcus had never mentioned, receipts from expensive jewelry I had never received, and rental agreements for a vacation home I knew nothing about. But the most interesting discovery was a folder labeled Stratford Investment Project in Marcus's home office. Sophie photographed every page. When I reviewed them, my heart raced. These were documents from my father's firm, confidential client information that Marcus had no authorization to possess. The evidence mounts. Over the next 3 days, I stayed away from the penthouse, letting Marcus and Natalie believe they had won. Meanwhile, I built my case. David worked around the clock, and what he discovered was shocking. Marcus had been embezzling from Hartford Investments for 2 years, using client funds for personal investments and covering his tracks by manipulating accounts. The amounts were small enough to avoid immediate detection but totaled over $3 million. He had also purchased the vacation home in Natalie's name, using money he had secretly borrowed against our penthouse. The jewelry receipts? Gifts for Natalie, purchased with a credit card linked to my boutique's business account, a card I had given him for emergencies only. "Elena," David said during our meeting, "this isn't just about a divorce anymore. This is criminal fraud. We need to involve the authorities." "Not yet," I replied. "I want to handle this my way first." I also hired a private investigator, a woman named Rachel Torres, who specialized in infidelity cases. Within 2 days, she provided me with a comprehensive report, photos of Marcus and Natalie at romantic restaurants, entering hotels, and even visiting the vacation home that was supposedly Marcus's business investment. But the most damaging evidence was a recording Rachel obtained. She had placed a listening device in the penthouse, legally, since it was still technically my residence, and captured Marcus and Natalie discussing their plan. "Once the divorce is final, we'll have everything," Marcus's voice came through clearly. "The penthouse, her trust fund settlement, and with the Stratford deal, we'll be set for life." "What about her father?" Natalie asked. "James will be too embarrassed by the failed marriage to look too closely at the finances. By the time anyone notices, we'll have moved the money offshore. They were planning to rob me blind, destroy my father's company's reputation, and sail off into the sunset. But they had made one critical mistake: they had underestimated me." The confrontation preparation. On the 6th day, I received a text from Marcus, "Have you found a place yet? Time's almost up." I replied, "Yes. I'll get my things tomorrow." That night, I met with David, Rachel, and Sophie at my lawyer's office. Spread across the conference table was evidence of Marcus's crimes, bank records, recorded conversations, photographs, and testimony from 3 Hartford Investments employees who had noticed irregularities but were too afraid to speak up. "This is enough to send him to prison," David said. "Good," I replied. "But I want something more. I want him to feel what I felt: betrayed, humiliated, destroyed." Sophie leaned forward. "What's your plan?" I smiled. "Marcus is being promoted next week. Dad is throwing him a celebration party at the Hartford Club. Everyone who matters will be there: clients, colleagues, society reporters. That's when I'll make my move." "Elena," David cautioned, "public humiliation is risky. He could sue for defamation." "Not if everything I say is true," I countered. "And besides, I want witnesses. I want everyone to see exactly who Marcus Reynolds really is." The week passed in a blur. I moved my things to a beautiful apartment downtown, let Marcus think he had won, and even sent Natalie a text, "Take care of my clothes. They're yours now." She responded with a smiley face, completely unaware of the storm that was coming. Part 2, The Calculated Revenge. The Promotion Party. The Hartford Club glittered with crystal chandeliers and influential guests. My father had spared no expense for Marcus's promotion party, vice president of investments, a position that would give him even more access to the firm's resources. If I didn't act tonight, Marcus would have the power to do even more damage. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a stunning red dress that turned every head in the room. My hair was swept up elegantly, and I wore the diamond necklace my grandmother had left me, armor for the battle ahead. Marcus's face went pale when he saw me. Natalie, hanging on his arm like a parasite, whispered something in his ear. He had probably told her I was too heartbroken to attend. "Elena." My father approached, surprised but pleased. "I'm so glad you came. Despite everything, you're still family." "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Dad," I said, kissing his cheek. "In fact, I have a special presentation planned for the guest of honor." Marcus overheard and his expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Elena, tonight isn't the time." "For what, Marcus? For celebrating your success?" I smiled sweetly. "But that's exactly why I'm here. The public exposure." The speeches began after dinner. Colleagues praised Marcus's dedication and insight. Clients thanked him for his excellent investment advice. Natalie beamed proudly, playing the role of the supportive girlfriend. Finally, my father took the microphone. "And now, I'd like to invite Marcus's wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, Elena, to say a few words." The room fell silent. This wasn't on the program. I walked to the podium, my heels clicking against the marble floor. I could feel every eye on me, hear the whispers. "Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight to celebrate Marcus," I began, my voice steady and clear. "I've known Marcus for 8 years, 2 years of dating, 6 years of marriage. In that time, I thought I knew him better than anyone." Marcus stood up, alarm flashing across his face. "Elena, what are you doing?" "Telling the truth," I replied calmly. "Please, sit down. This won't take long." My father gave him a look that froze him in place. 6 years ago, Marcus and I stood in a church and made vows. I promised to love him, support him, trust him. And I kept those promises. I supported his career, welcomed him into my family's business, and trusted him with everything, my heart, my home, my family's legacy. I paused, letting the emotion show in my voice. The room was completely silent. But Marcus made different promises. Promises to another woman. My best friend, Natalie, to be specific. Gasps filled the room. Natalie jumped to her feet, but before she could speak, I continued. "They've been having an affair for 14 months. But that's not all. While I was trusting my husband, he was stealing from this company, from my father, from all of you." "That's a lie," Marcus shouted, his face red with rage and panic. "Is it?" I nodded to David, who was standing by the projection screen. "Let me show you." The evidence revealed. The lights dimmed, and the screen behind me lit up with bank statements, transaction records, and financial documents. David narrated each slide with professional precision. Over the past 2 years, Marcus Reynolds has diverted over $3 million from Hartford Investments' client accounts into personal investment schemes. He's used sophisticated methods to cover his tracks, but the money trail is clear. The screen showed highlighted transactions, dates, and amounts. I watched as the color drained from Marcus's face. He also obtained confidential client information without authorization, David continued, and used it to make personal investments through an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. "This is insane." Marcus tried to push toward the exit, but security guards, hired specifically for tonight, blocked his path. Additionally, I took back the microphone. Marcus used a business credit card linked to my boutique to purchase over $200,000 in gifts for his mistress. Jewelry, vacations, even a vacation home, all bought with money that wasn't his. Photos of receipts flashed across the screen, each one damning. The crowd was in shock, murmuring and pointing. "Elena, stop this!" Natalie shrieked. "You're just bitter because Marcus chose me." I turned to her, my expression cold. "Natalie, did you know that the vacation home Marcus bought for you? The one he said was his inheritance? He took out a secret loan against the penthouse, my penthouse, to purchase it. A loan he planned to never repay, leaving me responsible for the debt." Her confident expression crumbled. "And that promotion you're so proud of, Marcus?" I looked at my soon-to-be ex-husband. "My father was planning to make you vice president because I asked him to. I told him you were brilliant and trustworthy. I vouched for you." My father's voice boomed across the room. "Elena, is all of this true?" "Every word, Dad. And I have evidence of everything, recordings, documents, witness testimony. It's all here." I held up a USB drive. "Including the conversation where Marcus and Natalie discussed their plan to embezzle even more money after the divorce, knowing you'd be too embarrassed to investigate thoroughly. The fallout begins." My father's face transformed from shock to pure fury. "Security, detain Mr. Reynolds. Don't let him leave this building. You can't do this," Marcus shouted, struggling against the guards. "James, we're family." "We were family," my father corrected coldly. "Now you're a criminal." He turned to his assistant. "Call the police. And contact our legal team. I want charges filed immediately." Natalie tried to slip away in the chaos, but I stopped her. "Where do you think you're going?" "This has nothing to do with me," she stammered. "I didn't know about any of this." "Didn't you?" I pulled out my phone and played a recording, the one Rachel had obtained from the penthouse. Natalie's voice came through clearly. "What about her father? James will be too embarrassed by the failed marriage to look too closely at the finances." Her face went white. "The vacation home is in your name," I said. "Which makes you an accomplice to fraud. I hope Marcus is worth it." The police arrived within minutes. The elegant party transformed into a crime scene. Officers took statements while Marcus was read his rights and handcuffed. "Elena, please," Marcus begged as they led him away. "Don't do this." "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. We can work this out." I walked up to him, close enough to see the desperation in his eyes. "You wanted me gone in a week, remember? You said I was boring, predictable. Well, surprise, Marcus. I hope you enjoy your new accommodations. I hear prison is very exciting." The legal battle. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Marcus was charged with embezzlement, fraud, and theft. Natalie faced charges as an accessory. The scandal made headlines. Hartford heiress exposes husband's fraud and love triangle leads to corporate scandal. My boutique saw a surge in business. Customers came in to express support, and my story of standing up to betrayal resonated with women everywhere. Sales increased by 40%, and I received interview requests from major magazines. But the legal battle was far from easy. Marcus hired an expensive defense team who tried to paint me as a vindictive wife exaggerating charges. They claimed the money was marital property, that the investments were legitimate, that I was simply angry about the affair. "Your Honor," Marcus's lawyer argued in court, "Mrs. Reynolds is using her family's influence to destroy my client because he fell in love with someone else. While adultery is unfortunate, it's not a crime." David stood up. "Your Honor, we're not here to prosecute adultery. We're here to address systematic embezzlement and fraud. Mr. Reynolds had a fiduciary duty to Hartford Investments and its clients. He violated that duty repeatedly and deliberately. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, recorded conversations, and testimony from forensic accountants all pointed to Marcus's guilt. The most damning moment came when the prosecution played the recording of Marcus and Natalie planning to move the money offshore before anyone noticed. Even his lawyers had no defense for that. The divorce proceedings. Parallel to the criminal case, our divorce proceeded. Marcus tried to claim half of everything: the penthouse, my boutique, even my inheritance trust fund. He's entitled to nothing, I told David firmly. He committed fraud and adultery. He gets nothing. The judge agreed. In a rare decisive ruling, she awarded me everything, citing Marcus's criminal behavior and breach of marital trust. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said sternly, you entered this marriage under false pretenses and spent its duration stealing from your wife and her family. You are entitled to exactly what you contributed, which, according to these records, is nothing. Marcus's face crumpled. I gave her 6 years of my life. You gave her 6 years of lies, the judge corrected. Divorce granted. All assets remain with Mrs. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds will pay restitution for the fraudulent credit card charges. Next case. As we left the courthouse, Marcus tried one last time. Elena, please. I'm going to prison. Natalie won't even take my calls. I have nothing. I stopped and looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had once been my everything now seemed small, pathetic. You had everything, Marcus, I said quietly. A wife who loved you, a family who trusted you, a career full of potential. You threw it all away for what? For excitement? For Natalie? I made a mistake, he whispered. No, I replied. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is a careless word said in anger. What you did was deliberate, calculated, and cruel. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. And now you get to live with the consequences. I walked away and didn't look back. The tables turned completely. 3 months later, Marcus was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud. Natalie received 2 years for her role as an accomplice and had to pay back the money spent on the vacation home. The Hartford Club hosted another party, this time, to celebrate my father's successful damage control of the firm. Not a single client left. In fact, the company's transparency in prosecuting Marcus had enhanced its reputation. Elena, my father said during his speech, I want to publicly apologize. I should have investigated the irregularities sooner. Your courage in coming forward saved this company and protected our clients. You're a true Hartford. The applause was thunderous. Later, as I stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Sophie joined me. How does it feel? She asked. To have one? I considered the question. Honestly? It feels empty. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. You got both, Sophie pointed out. Maybe. But I lost 6 years of my life to a lie. No victory can give those back. No, she agreed. But you can make the next 6 years count twice as much. She was right. Marcus was gone, Natalie was gone, and I was free. Free from betrayal, free from lies, free to rebuild my life on my own terms. My phone buzzed. It was an email from a major fashion magazine. Interview request, Elena Hartford, from heartbreak to success. I smiled. Maybe this wasn't the end after all. Maybe it was just the beginning. Part 3, Rising from the Ashes, 2,000 words. New beginnings. 6 months after the trial, my life looked completely different. I had sold the penthouse, too many bad memories, and bought a stunning brownstone in the historic district. Every room reflected my taste, my style, my choices. No compromises, no shared decisions, just me. My boutique, Elena's Elegance, expanded to 3 locations. The publicity from the trial had been a double-edged sword, but I wielded it skillfully. Women saw me as a survivor, a fighter, someone who refused to be a victim. My clothing line, sophisticated, powerful, elegant, resonated with that image. I was featured in Forbes, Vogue, and Business Insider. The phoenix of fashion, one headline called me. Rising from betrayal to build an empire. But despite the success, something was missing. I threw myself into work, attended charity galas, traveled for business, but at night, in my beautiful brownstone, I felt the silence. I was successful, independent, and utterly alone. "Elena, you need to start dating," Sophie insisted during one of our weekly dinners. "It's been 8 months since the divorce was finalized." "I'm fine," I replied automatically. "You're lonely," she corrected. "There's a difference between being independent and being isolated." "You're isolated." I wanted to argue, but she was right. I had built walls so high that nobody could climb them. The thought of trusting someone again, of being vulnerable, terrified me more than the public scandal had. An unexpected encounter. The universe has a funny way of timing. 2 days after that conversation with Sophie, I met Daniel Chen. I was at a charity auction for children's hospitals, bidding on a painting for my new boutique. The bidding was fierce, and I was determined to win. Finally, it came down to me and one other bidder, a man I couldn't see from my position. 20,000, I called out. 25,000, the male voice countered. 30,000, I said firmly. There was a pause. Then, I concede. The lady clearly wants it more. Laughter rippled through the audience. After the auction, a tall man with warm brown eyes and an easy smile approached me. "Congratulations on your painting," he said. "I'm Daniel. Daniel Chen." I froze. "Chen. Are you related to David Chen?" "He's my older brother," Daniel confirmed. "And yes, I know who you are, Elena Hartford. David talks about you constantly. Says you're the toughest client he's ever had." "I prefer determined," I replied, smiling despite myself. "Determined," he repeated, his eyes twinkling. "I like that better too." We talked for hours that night. Daniel was an architect, specializing in sustainable design. He was funny, intelligent, and surprisingly easy to talk to. He didn't treat me like a scandal or a headline, just like Elena. "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" he asked as the event was ending. Every instinct told me to say no, to protect myself. But Sophie's words echoed in my mind. There's a difference between being independent and being isolated. "Yes," I heard myself say. "I'd like that." The blossoming romance. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant, far from the society crowd. Daniel talked about his passion for architecture, about buildings that could heal people and communities. I found myself talking about fashion the same way, as art, as expression, as power. "You know what I admire most about you?" Daniel said over dessert. "You could have hidden after everything that happened. But instead, you built something bigger and better. That takes real courage." "Or stubbornness," I joked. "The best people are both," he replied. We started seeing each other regularly. Daniel never pushed, never demanded. He let me set the pace, respected my boundaries, and slowly, carefully, I felt my walls beginning to lower. He took me to construction sites to see his buildings taking shape. I brought him to fashion shows, watching his face light up as he understood the artistry behind each design. We cooked dinner in my brownstone, took long walks in the park, and talked about everything: past wounds, future dreams, present joys. "I haven't been this happy in years," I admitted one evening as we watched the sunset from my rooftop terrace. "Neither have I," Daniel said, taking my hand. "Elena, I know you've been hurt. I know trust doesn't come easy. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm patient. I'm here." His words should have scared me, but instead, they felt like coming home. The shadow returns. Of course, happiness is never without complications. 3 months into my relationship with Daniel, I received a letter. The return address was from the federal correctional facility where Marcus was serving his sentence. My hand shook as I opened it. Dear Elena. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I'm writing because I need you to know something. I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I realize now what I lost. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. I'm up for early release in 2 years for good behavior. When I get out, I want a chance to make things right. To prove I've changed. To win you back. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm asking anyway. Forever yours, Marcus. I sat there staring at the letter for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called David. Can he really get early release? I asked. Possibly, David said. With good behavior and prison overcrowding, 2 years is feasible. He says he wants me back. What do you want, Elena? It was such a simple question, but it required a complex answer. What did I want? I want to move forward, I said finally. I want him to stay in the past where he belongs. Then that's exactly what we'll make sure happens, David assured me. I didn't respond to Marcus's letter. I filed it away and tried to forget about it. But the shadow of my past had returned, and it was harder to ignore than I'd hoped. Daniel's support. I didn't tell Daniel about the letter at first. But he noticed I had become distant, distracted. Elena, what's wrong? He asked gently one evening. I showed him the letter. He read it carefully, then set it down. Are you considering it? He asked, his voice neutral but his eyes worried. No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. But it bothers me that he thinks he has a chance. That he thinks he can just apologize and everything will be fine. He's delusional, Daniel said. Prison does that sometimes. People construct fantasies to cope. He hurt me, Daniel. He didn't just cheat, he stole from my family, he plotted against us, he tried to destroy everything I had built. And now he wants forgiveness? You don't owe him anything, Daniel said firmly. Not forgiveness, not a second chance, not even acknowledgement. You've moved on. He needs to do the same. His words were exactly what I needed to hear. That night, I wrote a brief response to Marcus through my lawyer. Mr. Reynolds. I received your letter. I'm glad you're reflecting on your actions. However, I have no interest in reconciliation now or in the future. I've moved on with my life, and I suggest you do the same. Do not contact me again. Elena Hartford. Formal, final, and clear. David ensured it was properly filed, creating a legal record of my rejection of any future contact. Marcus's desperation. But Marcus wasn't done yet. 2 months later, he somehow got a message to Sophie, begging her to intercede on his behalf. She called me immediately. He's desperate, Sophie said. He told me Natalie never visited him once after the sentencing. His parents disowned him. He has no one. That's not my problem, I replied coldly. I know. I told him the same thing. But Elena, be careful. Desperate men do stupid things. Her warning proved prophetic. A week later, Marcus's mother showed up at my boutique. Mrs. Reynolds had aged dramatically since I'd last seen her. Where she once carried herself with pride and arrogance, she now looked defeated and desperate. Elena, please. 5 minutes of your time. I almost refused, but something about her broken expression made me agree. We sat in my office, the door open, my assistant nearby. My son made terrible mistakes, Mrs. Reynolds began. He hurt you unforgivably. But he's still my son. He's suffering in there, Elena. The guilt is destroying him. He should feel guilty, I said evenly. I'm not asking you to take him back. I'm asking you to visit him once. Let him apologize properly. Give him closure so he can move on. Why should I give him anything? Because you're not cruel, she said, tears in her eyes. Because despite everything, you loved him once. And because holding on to anger will only hurt you in the end. I considered her words. Was I holding on to anger? Or was I simply protecting myself? Mrs. Reynolds, I'll think about it, I said finally. But I make no promises. She thanked me and left, leaving me with a decision I wasn't sure I wanted to make. The final confrontation. After discussing it with Daniel, Sophie, and David, I decided to visit Marcus once. Not for him, for me. To close this chapter completely and prove to myself that he had no power over me anymore. The correctional facility was cold and institutional. I sat in the visiting room, waiting, my heart surprisingly calm. When Marcus walked in wearing his prison uniform, I barely recognized him. He had lost weight, his hair was graying, and his eyes held a haunted look I'd never seen before. "Elena," he said, sitting down across from me. "You came." "I'm here to give you closure," I said directly. "Say what you need to say. Then we're done. Forever." He nodded, taking a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. I know those words are meaningless after everything I did, but I need to say them. I was selfish, greedy, and cruel. I took the best thing in my life and destroyed it for temporary excitement and money." "Why?" I asked. That's what I never understood. Why throw everything away? "Pride," he admitted. "Being Marcus Hartford by marriage instead of Marcus Reynolds. Always being compared to your father, your success. I wanted something that was mine, money I earned, power I built. But I went about it in the worst way possible." "You could have talked to me," I said. "We could have worked through those feelings." "I know. But I was too much of a coward." He looked at me with genuine remorse. "I heard you're with someone new. David's brother, right?" I stiffened. "How did you?" "Mom told me. She keeps track of society news." He managed a sad smile. "I'm happy for you." "Really? Daniel's a good man. Better than I ever was." "Marcus, what do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said, surprising me. "I wanted to apologize face to face. And to tell you that you were right to do what you did. Exposing me saved other people from being hurt. I was spiraling, and I wouldn't have stopped." We sat in silence for a moment. "Are you going to be okay?" I found myself asking. "Eventually. I'm taking classes, trying to be better. When I get out, I'll start over somewhere new. Somewhere nobody knows me." He paused. "Elena, can I ask you one thing?" "What?" "Did you ever really love me? Or was I just convenient?" The question caught me off guard. I thought about our early days, the laughter, the dreams we shared. "I loved who I thought you were," I said honestly. "The man I married, the partner I believed in, I loved him deeply. But that man was a fiction. I don't know if the real you ever existed, or if you were performing the whole time." He flinched but nodded. "That's fair. I'm sorry I wasn't the man you deserved." The guard called time. Marcus stood up slowly. "Goodbye, Elena. Thank you for coming. It means more than you know." "Goodbye, Marcus." I walked out of that prison feeling lighter than I had in months. The confrontation I dreaded had given me exactly what I needed, confirmation that I had made the right choice, that my anger was justified, and that moving on was not only possible but necessary. True happiness found. When I got home, Daniel was waiting with takeout and wine. "How did it go?" he asked, searching my face. "It went, well, actually." He apologized. "I got closure. And I realized something." "What's that?" "That I'm completely, totally over him. That chapter is closed, sealed, and filed away. I'm ready to move forward. With you. If you'll have me." Daniel pulled me into his arms. "Elena, I've been waiting for you to be ready. I love you. I've loved you since that ridiculous auction where you refused to let me have that painting." I laughed, tears in my eyes. "I love you too. And I'm ready now. Ready to trust again, to build something new, to be happy. He kissed me, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Not the cautious hope of someone expecting to be hurt, but the real, genuine hope of someone who had survived the worst and come out stronger. 1 year later, the triumph. A year later, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Hartford estate, surrounded by everyone I loved. Daniel and I were getting married, but this wasn't just any wedding. It was a celebration of survival, of strength, of rising from the ashes. My boutique had expanded to 10 locations across the country. I had launched a successful online platform and was in talks to partner with a major department store. Forbes had named me one of the top 30 entrepreneurs under 35. But more importantly, I had learned to trust again. To love again. To believe that not everyone would betray me. As I walked down the aisle toward Daniel, I saw my father's proud smile, Sophie's happy tears, and David's knowing nod. The room was filled with people who had supported me through the darkest time of my life. "You look beautiful," Daniel whispered as I reached him. "I feel beautiful," I replied. "I feel whole." The ceremony was perfect, personal, emotional, and genuine. When the minister pronounced us married, the room erupted in applause. The unexpected message. During the reception, Sophie pulled me aside. "You need to see this." She showed me her phone. It was a news article: former investment exec Marcus Reynolds released early, immediately violates parole. I read quickly. Marcus had been released 2 weeks ago but was arrested again for attempting to access Hartford Investments' computer systems remotely. He was claiming he was trying to prove his innocence, but it was clearly another crime. "He's going back to prison," Sophie said. "For longer this time." I should have felt satisfaction, but all I felt was pity. Marcus couldn't move on. He was trapped in the past, still trying to win a war that was over. "Don't tell him," I said, gesturing to Daniel, who was talking with guests. "Not today. Today is about our future, not my past." Sophie hugged me. "You've come so far, Elena. I'm so proud of you." The final reflection. Later that night, after the guests had left and the venue was quiet, Daniel and I stood on the terrace overlooking the city lights. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "I'm thinking about how different my life is now," I said. 2 years ago, I thought my world was ending. I was broken, betrayed, and lost. But look at me now. I'm married to an incredible man, my business is thriving, and I'm genuinely happy." "You earned it," Daniel said. "You fought for it." "We fought for it," I corrected. "You were patient with me when I was difficult. You loved me when I was scared to be loved." "That was the easy part," he said, kissing my temple. "Loving you has always been easy." I turned to face him. "You know what the best revenge was?" "What?" "This. Being happy. Building a life better than anything Marcus and I had. Proving that I didn't need him, that I was never the boring, predictable woman he claimed I was. The best revenge was becoming the person I was always meant to be." Daniel smiled. "So what's next for the Phoenix of fashion?" "Everything," I said confidently. "A family, expanding the business, maybe designing a line of wedding dresses. I have some experience with that now." I gestured to my custom gown. "Sounds ambitious." "I'm determined," I said, echoing our first conversation. I wouldn't have it any other way. As we stood there, overlooking the city where I had fallen and risen, I realized something profound. Marcus's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been necessary. It had burned away everything false in my life and forced me to rebuild from the ground up. The woman I was now, confident, successful, loved, was someone I never could have become if I'd stayed in that comfortable but hollow marriage. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that will ever happen. Epilogue. 5 years later. 5 years after the wedding, I received one final letter from Marcus. This time, I wasn't scared or angry. I was simply curious. Dear Elena, this will be my last letter to you. I'm writing to tell you that I'm being released next month. I've served my full sentence this time, completed therapy, and I'm ready to start over. I'm moving to Seattle to work with a nonprofit helping ex-convicts reintegrate into society. I'm using my experience as a cautionary tale to help others avoid the mistakes I made. I've spent years reflecting on my choices. You were right about everything. I was selfish, cruel, and destructive. The man you married was a facade, and I'm sorry you wasted years on someone who didn't exist. But I want to thank you. Exposing me was the best thing anyone ever did for me. Prison forced me to confront who I really was and who I wanted to become. I'm not the same man anymore. I know you're happy now. I've seen the articles about your fashion empire, your beautiful family, your success. You deserved all of it and more. This is goodbye, Elena. For real this time. I hope life continues to be everything you dreamed it would be. With genuine gratitude and respect, Marcus Reynolds. I read the letter twice, then showed it to Daniel. How do you feel? He asked. Peaceful, I said honestly. He sounds like he's finally taken responsibility. I hope he finds his redemption. Are you going to respond? No, I said, filing the letter away. This chapter is closed. I have nothing left to say to him. I walked over to the window where I could see our twin daughters playing in the backyard, their laughter floating through the open window. My 10th boutique had just opened, and I was in negotiations to design an affordable fashion line for everyday women. Life wasn't perfect, it never is. But it was mine. Every decision, every success, every moment was genuinely, authentically mine. Marcus had thought he controlled everything. But in the end, he controlled nothing. Not me, not my future, not even his own fate. I, on the other hand, had taken control of my story. I had turned betrayal into empowerment, heartbreak into success, and victimhood into victory. That was the real revenge, not hurting him, but thriving without him. Not making him suffer, but refusing to suffer myself. As I watched my daughters play and felt Daniel's arm around my waist, I smiled. The price of betrayal had been high, but the reward of survival was priceless. I had paid in tears, heartbreak, and lost years. But I had received strength, wisdom, and true love in return. And that, I realized, was the best ending I could have ever asked for. The end. Thank you for listening to this story on Heart's Reckoning. If you enjoyed Elena's journey from heartbreak to triumph, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of love, betrayal, and redemption. Drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in Elena's situation. Your support means everything to us. Next story coming soon, she played the perfect wife. Until I found her secret.